When I first saw this ad from ANZ Bank that just came out, I felt a little bit angry, and then I felt a little bit sad. It just shows the state of the affordability crisis that everybody's talking about, but nobody really wants to fix in Australia. The government is pretending that they're trying to fix it, but they really can't afford to fix it, because if the property prices fell to some sort of an appropriate level where we don't call it bubble anymore, the government would make as much money because the revenue would fall. The housing, the building industry would suffer. A lot of people lose jobs, which means that there'd be a lot less income tax revenue to the government. And then you got the real estate agents, you got the builders, you got the whole housing industrial complex and government that is just not going to let this one go. But look at this ad and tell me what you think. I've got a lot more than just this ad, but it's a good entry into this presentation.
With a beautiful family home here, ladies and gentlemen. Right here, $1 million. It's impossible. $1 million. I have $1 million. $1,200,000. Thank you. $1,200,000. It's impossible.
How much will this actually cost?
How do we even apply?
Okay, now let's get you sorted. Your pre-approval is in.
Right, thanks.
I'll send you the details. Good luck. Getting into your first home might seem impossible, but an ANZ first home coach will help you throughout the journey.
This might actually be somewhat possible.
Okay, so how exactly did ANZ make this home affordable? It was $1 million plus. It was a complete dump, and all of a sudden the couple turns around and they're able to bid for it. What happened? I mean, that house is still a dump. It still costs over $1 million. So what sort of financial engineering have they pulled to be able to get that poor couple to get the home that they clearly A, can't afford, and B, is not worth what they're paying for, and C, is a dump. Nobody could live in it. I think ANZ are being a little bit too candid, a lot more candid than they were intending to be, at least the agency that is making these ads for them. But it seems like they're treating Australian public as morons. Now, I don't want to land myself in the hot water, but I don't know, are they right? I don't think so, because people are just trying to get their first home, and they're having to pay these exorbitant prices that are out of this world. So I actually feel sorry for the couples and young people and everyone else who's trying to get into the property market. But look, this next ad, also from ANZ. I mean, what were they thinking?
Here's Claire and Patrick. Today, they're celebrating because they almost bought this house. They thought this place went for a lot more than it should have. Thanks to ANZ Buy Ready, they also knew that if they had bought this house, they wouldn't be celebrating anything with champagne until at least 2027. You see, it's not just knowing when to say yes, it's knowing exactly when to say no. Know what to know. Search ANZ Buy Ready.
I personally think that the commercial television in Australia is really dumb. I mean, the mainstream media is just unbelievable. The only show I actually watch is the one that I quite frequently bring to you, is The Business on ABC, abc.net.au. And although they're left-leaning and there's 99% of their shows, as far as the current affairs and politics and news, I don't agree with. I don't want to watch it. It just makes me angry. But this is one of those that is worthwhile following and watching, which is why, again, I bring it to you. And I want you to see this next story.
The International Monetary Fund warns Australia's household debt level is too high. The IMF says Australia's high levels of debt leave us potentially exposed to a global economic shock or a banking crisis. An IMF study into highly leveraged households and financial stability singled out Australia Household debt here has risen to 100% of GDP. That's well ahead of other advanced economies where the ratio is closer to 63%. But the IMF warns the global level of household debt remains high by historical standards. Sticking with debt, and up to a third of home loan borrowers with interest-only loans may not even realise they have them. That's the surprising new research from global investment bank UBS after a survey of more than 900 people who'd taken out a home loan recently. The research is a follow-up to UBS's report into liar loans, which found up to a third of people had given inaccurate information on their loan applications. UBS says it's cross-checked the results against official data. The report authors voiced concern that, as a result, borrowers aren't aware that repayments will jump by 30 to 60% at the end of the interest-only period. It raises questions about responsible lending and whether borrowers fully understand what they're signing up for. ANZ's new First Home Coach television advertisements makes light of ignorance of the processes involved in buying a home.
I've checked and there's up to $1,000 back on conveyancing for you.
I don't want conveyancing.
Neither do I. Keep smiling.
So how much should home buyers know before signing their lives away, and whose responsibility is it to tell them? I spoke with Catherine Temple, Senior Policy Officer at Consumer Law Centre, about the burden of duty behind home loans. Catherine Temple, UBS research indicates that a third of all people who have interest-only loans don't understand that they have interest-only loans. Are people that ignorant as to what they're actually signing up for? Do you believe the research?
The research is very concerning to us. Interest-only loans really aren't suitable for most average Australian homeowners. They're really only suitable for certain types of investors in particular circumstances. And we think that if customers don't understand the key features of the products that they're buying, that it's pretty difficult to argue that those products have been sold responsibly.
Why aren't they suitable?
Really, it's a bit of a debt trap, to be honest. The lower payments up front that then balloon out, particularly for people who don't understand that they're not even paying off the principal of the amount they've borrowed. We think that they're really not suitable unless you're an investor in certain types of situations where you're perhaps claiming tax deductions for those interest repayments. But really, these are fairly complex products that aren't suitable to the average homeowner.
I personally think what happens is that, as they stated, that 1/3 of these people don't know what they're getting themselves into, and 2/3, which is majority, as some of the viewers or possibly subscribers of my channel mentioned in their comments, is that the rest of the people know exactly what they're getting themselves into, and the reason why they are getting mortgages and loans that are interest only is because they're banking on the fact that the property is, or they're speculating that the property is going to go up, appreciate in value. They wouldn't have paid any loan off, so they would just sit on the property for a year or two, or however long is required, or they're happy when the property is appreciated, sell it to the next fool, in my opinion. Anyway, they sell it and they make a profit without having to really pay too much more or pay any principal of the loan. Instead, they were just paying the interest only, hence interest only loan.
In your experience at the centre, why is it people end up with products that they don't know they're in? Is it their fault because they don't understand and yet they still sign on the dotted line, or is it brokers or the actual lenders themselves that are pushing these products?
We think the lenders and the brokers have a responsibility to make sure that the people that they're selling products to understand the key features of those products. And that
yeah, brokers and the lenders don't really want the public or their customers, they don't really want their customers to be well informed. I mean, the consumers are getting more and more informed about many purchases, but it seems like the housing is just not one of those, because I feel like that when somebody approaches the idea of buying a property, they don't look at it as if they're paying using money. Why do I say that? Because most of the borrowing, especially the interest-only loans, most of it is actually borrowed. They didn't really put any of their money down, and if they did, maybe it's a $10,000, $20,000, even $50,000. Doesn't sound that much, although they had to borrow another $1 million. So they seem to be able to pay more because they are pushing back the payments and the repayment of this somewhere in the future, which is the whole premise of the loan. So you are hoping that your income is going to be able to match the repayments in the future and the interest rates rises, so you are borrowing now so you can continue to hold that home as an investment or live in it a long time in the future. But this is probably enough of a point that I made in this video. They seem to be happy not to have consumers, borrowers educated about the loans, about their rights, about how much this costs and what they're actually getting themselves into, especially the interest-only loans. I hope you enjoy this. Subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more videos coming up, and take care.